Hello, everyone. Welcome. Guess what time it is? Farmcraft 2024. So we are so excited to be able to share this season with you all. Let's just jump right into it. I'm Claire LeBeau. I'm the Chief Advancement Officer for NASEF. We have a cast of some regular suspect characters on here and then a few additional special guests today. So we'll go ahead and do a round robin of introductions. Niles, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Sure. My name's Niles Cole. I'm an economic officer with the Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs at the Department of State.
Can you just tell, why is the Department of State interested in Farmcraft and the work that we're doing?
Well, agriculture is hugely important for not only the American economy, but the world economy. A lot of people, I should say everyone, relies on agriculture because you eat. And if you eat, you rely on agriculture.
Perfect. Well, that is about as concise a summary as I can imagine. Thank you. And then we have our esteemed developer team here. Let's see, Brian, go for it.
Hey everybody, Brian or CleverLike, head of CleverLike Studios. We, take games that kids love to play and we sneak in the vegetables because, you got to eat something.
And sneaking in the vegetables is exactly what we do with Farmcraft, which is pretty funny. All right, and Eric.
I'm Eric Leitner, go by River online, and I am the education content producer for CleverLike Studios, and I cannot believe we've done 4 of these now, or we're on 4 of these now, but I've been along for the whole ride. So I create some of the curriculum, the lesson plans, help develop the content in the world, and it is just one of the highlights of my year every year, and I love it. So I'm so excited for this season and 2024.
Awesome. So good. And so we have some students joining us today. You will notice. Students, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. So why don't we go ahead, Ivy, you can introduce yourself and then tell us where your team is from as well. And then we'll go down the line and each of you can introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Ivy, and we're from Hannibal, Missouri.
Okay.
My name's Natalie.
My name's Kaylin.
My name is Micah.
You joined us on a stream last year. What's the name of your team again?
Kane.
Team Kane, which we love. And there is a very big honor coming up in your future. What is that?
We're going to Washington, D.C. for a STEM conference.
Right. So the Farmcraft project has been chosen by the U.S. Department of Education to present at the National STEM Festival in April. And this team right here has been selected along with a few others to represent NASEF, to represent Farmcraft, and represent what all of you are doing when you participate in this game, which is learn a ton about agriculture while you're having fun. So any one of you students, or maybe all of you, just for a second, tell us, what do you like about Farmcraft? How are you learning through this game?
For me, I think as the 4 of us have worked together on this, I think not only does it bring us closer, it also helps us to all learn together, which provides a good environment for us.
Very cool. What kinds of things have you learned about agriculture? Can you give me 1 or 2 ideas of things that you've picked up?
I learned one thing about that fertilizer has a big climate effect on things, and I did not know that before.
That's awesome.
I learned that how to make like seeds with injections of like things that can harm and help the environment.
Very cool. That's great. Well, David, I see you nodding and smiling that we're getting some of these lessons or hitting home with these high school students. We're really glad to have you here and share your expertise with us today. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is David Hughes. I'm a professor of food security here at Penn State University, and I'm also the founder of Plant Village, which is a global platform using artificial intelligence to help farmers across the world. We've worked with the United Nations in about 65 countries. We're perhaps relevant also to this venue. I had a whole background in evolutionary biology, work on zombie ants, which was actually taken up by The Last of Us, and it was the inspiration for the Last of Us PlayStation game. So I've been involved in games since about 2012, and I've worked with the studios there, which is now kind of transpired into working with them on HBO. So it's a real pleasure to revisit this gaming environment, and I was really impressed to hear what you're learning on agriculture through this venue. Thanks so much for having me.
That's fantastic. Did you say zombie ants? Did I get that right?
Yeah, zombie ants is a system whereby a fungus in a rainforest controls an ant's brain to make it leave the colony and die on the other side of a leaf. So that was my life's work and research, and that it's been very common in zombie lore. And I was consultant for the World War Z project, Brad Pitt movie, the Last of Us. It was used on a Netflix the TV show. So I guess people used to love zombies and diseases before COVID. Maybe we've sort of lost our flavor for global pandemics.
Yes, we absolutely have no desire to repeat that again, right?
David, you mentioned that you're working in over 65 countries on AI, and there seems to be a lot of different opinions on AI. How does it apply to agriculture? How does digital technology in general benefit agriculture?
Yeah, maybe I'll maybe just show a slide, and that will help us frame the conversation. But we have been working the global south, so Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and I hope you can see my screen now. But the situation will be the one that we see here, with a smallholder farmer like Rosalind or her colleague Emiliana. They lack access to knowledge from trained experts. So here in the United States, we have the land grant university, so every farmer can access knowledge either through land grants or through companies. But we don't have that in Africa, like in Kenya or DRC or elsewhere. So what Plant Village has been doing has been leveraging artificial intelligence, enabling a diagnostic system inside the phone to diagnose this problem, which is a virus affecting Rosalind's farm. And now she can learn it, and then she can also educate her neighbor Emiliana. Before we did this, they used to think it was caused by sunshine, or perhaps the rain causes the fall off. But now they understand it's a virus. They understand there's no cure, and the best way to deal with this problem is through using clean seeds. So we're seeing large-scale changes. So we often think of AI as a problem because it's going to come and take your jobs. But if we don't have those knowledge workers in Africa, actually it's a massive assist. It can help people make money and have more productive farming.
Thank you for that.
That makes great sense. So
Really cool.
We're going to go ahead and do one of the highlights of the streams always is we don't want to just sit around and talk. We want to get into Minecraft. So Eric is going to go ahead and share his screen, and we are going to jump in.
And this is going to look familiar because I think every season we have started with this farm and this farmhouse, which is our own little kind of one that we've created on our own, which is kind of a good place to start because every preseason 1 challenge, which we're going to announce today, has started with a create your own farm, although there's always been sort of a spin on it. And if you're paying attention to the conversation, maybe you'll start to get what some of that spin is before we formally announce the challenge on this stream. But this has been our farm, season after season where we've started. This is not our in-game world that you'll be playing in the regular season, but we've started here just to talk about some of the pre-existing mechanics that are in Minecraft when it comes to farming. Now, there are some things that I've already done. For example, the farm is already tilled, so we're not going to worry about tilling too much on our stream today. Not a focus point for it, although it is always a focus point in our Farmcraft worlds. We've learned so much about what tilling can and can't do, and it always brings us back to Brian's favorite learned term. Brian, what are we going to say here?
Which are we talking about the what are they called?
Oh,
Don't tell
are
me
they
you forgot. Don't say
facultative?
Anaerobes?
Every time. Got to do it every time.
I mean, the fact that you could stop breathing air and start breathing water essentially is amazing to me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the other things they might notice, especially if students who are really familiar with this, is I've kind of cranked up the tick speed on here so things grow a little faster. Brian's already got some produce in his hands. If you go into that chest behind you, Brian, there's more seeds in there, or I can drop you some. You know,
So
you're just
David,
eating
that's
the produce. You're just eating the produce. Okay.
David, that's a question
Yeah,
for
that'll
you.
work.
I mean, in this game, Eric just sped up how quickly things grow. And I know that's something that's really important is growing seasons. And, you know, if we can minimize the amount of time it grows, are we able to grow healthy plants, healthy foods more quickly? How are we using technology to impact things like growing time or growing locations?
Yeah. So it's all about. I saw somebody else on a previous episode who was talking about regenerative agriculture. So if we can put beneficial microbes into the soil, like a special fungus, it's called a mycorrhizal fungus, or we can put in others that can control pests, then we can accelerate the nutrients to go to the plant in increasing the above ground biomass. Another way is to reduce the stress. There's a lot of stress by heat or high temperatures. So if we can control the environment where we reduce that stress and that we have less water leaving the farm, so less drought stress. So these are ways in which we can think about engineering the farm environment in the soil or around the farm. There's of course also engineering of the plants themselves, ways in which, and one of your students talked about injecting things into seeds, which can be beneficial and negative. So for example, something that would stop an insect pest eating that's something that's also very useful. But as she said correctly, we have to think about some negative effects that may come down the line.
So I want to follow up on that. That's an interesting question in terms of what technologies do you see as being critical to the future for food security and for access to healthy food around the world?
So I think the fundamentally biggest one is going to be shade. So we're now going to go into a 1.5 degrees Celsius world. So February 2024, we'll see us break through that. And this pace of climate change is happening far quicker than we imagined. And so and I'll have to think about this in Celsius, I suppose, but if we have temperatures in a field which is about 34 degrees Celsius, whatever that is, I guess it's about 90 or something, but the temperature is just too high for the plants. Their gene activity stops and there's too much water lost. And so we're seeing these changes so quickly. What does 1.5 degrees Celsius mean? So I'm 5'7". You might see somebody out in the world who's 6'4". That's a tall size. Maybe you see a 6'9" person, but 5'7" is really about 8'9" in height. That's what 1.5 degrees Celsius means. It means regularly seeing people out in the world who are 8 or 9 feet tall, and we don't see that. And so this is how quickly things have changed, and this is the reality we have to deal with. And so just keeping the temperature down on the farm is going to be so critical, and preventing that moisture being lost.
So what kind of digital technologies or other technologies do you think can be used to help create effective, productive farms in a rapidly changing environment?
Yeah. So knowledge is power. This is not our first rodeo. In the 1930s, we had the Dust Bowl. We saw huge swathes of the United States facing this effect. So simply sending knowledge. So we send knowledge from the U.S. government through a program called FuseNet or Severe to about 14 million people every season through TV and radio and local engagements. So simply knowing the stress is really helpful. And then if we can make it available that people can plant trees on the borders of their farms, that's really, really helpful, because that reduces the evaporation. As we all know, you walk through a city in the summertime, if you walk under a tree, you feel a massive difference than being exposed with all that heat. So building the environment this way, and of course, trees are beneficial in many other ways because they reduce soil erosion. And oftentimes you can plant a type of tree that produces nitrogen under the ground that will help the plants have more nitrogen, or maybe it's a fruit tree, so you have a diversified type of income. So if we give people knowledge and then we open the access to having these solutions. So we have an innovation lab supported by the United States government, and so we have this SOS model. So we do surveillance, outreach, and solutions. So surveillance might be looking around, using satellites to find out the problem. Outreach is education. This is what you could do. And the solution is making it really easy for you to have a drought tolerant seed, a border tree, something in your soil that holds moisture like biochar. Lots of ways in which we can do this at scale. So there is good news here, but we have to be recognizing the challenge we face.
Eric, what's going on in here?
So, I keep trying to drop little subtle hints if people have been watching the Farmcraft stream or the Minecraft stream here on the screen. So you'll notice that Brian and I are not doing any farming right now. There's this little robotic guy here taking care of it for us, planting the seeds. That we created an automated process, if you will, to take care of that using what is available in Minecraft. In this case, a little bit of code. And I've actually kind of pre-programmed this guy to plant the crops on our farm that we've had for 4 seasons now. So this is the first time we don't have to do it by hand. And we can also make him do this. And so we can have him harvest as well. So again, I keep dropping these subtle hints about what this season's going to be about, what's happening, what this challenge might be. We're going to announce it in just a second. I don't want to make anyone panic and say, they say, well, maybe I don't know coding or I don't know how to use code in Minecraft. I don't want them to worry about that. We're going to drop some ways to do that, and know that coding is not the only way you can complete this challenge that we're going to provide today. But it is a fun way to do it because I love just watching this little guy work. That's our agent. Love watching him work.
Well, and I'm imagining how efficient that agent could be, because no matter what we do, and no matter how much we wish that there were 2 of Eric, there is always only 1 of Eric. But I can imagine that with technology, we could have multiples of this little guy out in the farm doing some work and speeding up the process and making our farm more efficient.
Absolutely. And not only, if we wanted to get really advanced, not only could I have him do things like plant and harvest, but I can have him detect things, almost acting like a sensor and providing data as to what my little agent robot guy here is detecting in a particular spot on the farm.
Oh, that's awesome. Team King, did you have any questions you wanted to ask of the developers or of David?
This one's for David. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced?
So our whole model is to bring technology to farmers in the form of a smartphone. So the problem is data costs a lot of money. So some early on, maybe 60% of what we were trying to do was data. So that was one challenge. The other challenge is we're bringing phones to people who live in an analog world. So they don't have oftentimes electricity, they don't have phones, and they don't have an experience with those. And they're oftentimes much older. So they might be 50, 55 years, 60 years old. And so we've used young people as a bridge. So every time the technology breaks in your house, I'm sure your parents are asking you to fix it and reaching out to you for help. And so that's the same in Africa for us. We use young people who act as a bridge to farmers, and we often work with schools as well. And they're also really helpful. So we're thinking of that. So those are the 2 big challenges. Access to data and then the technology adoption. The good news is there's plenty of knowledge out there. So like you talked about earlier, what you shared. So we have lots of knowledge to share. We just need to bring more people into the room.
Isn't that interesting that with all of these tools and all of these advancements that we have, it comes down to nothing related to agriculture at all that's the biggest challenge, that instead it's the access to the data and understanding how to use the tech. Yeah. Speaking as someone who relies on my children to translate technology for me, I understand exactly what you're talking about there, David. Anything else from the Hannibal team?
Yeah, I was wondering, what kind of technology do you use to identify threats to the crops?
So in that video I was showing you, that is running what's called a convolutional neural network. So it's an AI system, and it's come from Google. They have something called TensorFlow, and that's really powerful, and it runs inside the phone with no internet connection. So AI is now so powerful, we can put it on a phone. And you may have noticed this out in the world where or when you're taking a picture on Instagram or something, it automatically recognizes what's in the picture. So those things are working. So that's the main thing that we do. We also, of course, use other technologies like the access to irrigation or better seeds, all the traditional stuff that we know exist and work in Europe or America. But mostly what we're trying to do is break through with this AI. We're also using, and you're probably very familiar with ChatGPT, where what's called a large language model, where you can simply talk to the phone and have an answer. Now, the challenge there is that you might have an indigenous language in the country of Niger, that might be Hausa mixed with French. So it's a little bit like Creole that you might hear. It's a mixture, or Spanglish. And so that's really hard to train the machine. But if you can get the training data, then the machine. So we often think of it this way, that voice is the present and the future of African farming, because people are not reading, they don't know how to read, but they can speak. So that you could speak into the phone and the phone could give you the answer based upon what it knows from satellite observations and other data. Good question.
What other digital technologies do you see being transformative for farmers in the global south, beyond just the AI to identify plant diseases?
So, some of you may know about this. There was a very famous example of DeepMind, which is a large company that Google bought, and they became very famous for the game of Go, which is a very complex game, and they used their technology to learn how to play. First, it played its very simple computer games where you have the ball moving back and forth, and then he played Go. So they won. They beat all the humans. And then that same group came up with something called a new algorithm for protein folding. Protein folding is a very complex scientific question. And so the computer solved that through continual learning. I think that as we enter climate change so quickly, we're going to need a global system to figure out what crops grow where in what circumstances. And that's not just Alabama or Angola or somewhere else. It's everywhere at once all the time. And so we're going to have to use AI to figure these things out, because that requires integrating data on the images of the plant, but also the way the water moves in the soil, the conditions of the solar radiation that is drawing the heat from the land, or the wind, which is increasing the water loss. These are incredibly complex areas of science that are dealt with by many different types of scientists, and AI will be advantageous in bringing all of that together. So this is where I think AI is, because the reality, as I've stated before, is that no human university or no institution knows how to grow under the current conditions. So AI is going to be a massive partner in being able to survive with civilization on planet Earth.
David, do you have any questions for the students?
So how much more connected have you become to agriculture because of this? So I know that FarmView, which was the Facebook game way back in the past, was something similar. And has this made you think more of your food supply?
I do a lot of agriculture classes here at Hannibal, and this game has helped me not just read it off a board, but do it physically more than just sitting down and reading it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I was gonna say, I think this game has kind of shown that the food doesn't just get there. It gives you more appreciation for those who do farm and do bring us that food.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Does that make you think about that more when you're in the supermarket buying food or something? Do you think about that?
Yes.
That's interesting. Thank you. And the other two?
Oh, I think it makes me a lot more conscious of my environmental habits and what effects it will have on the environment.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, go ahead. It makes me think just more about what I'm doing to help the environment, or what I can do maybe in the future to help people help the environment.
Yeah. And one of you mentioned that about synthetic fertilizers increasing. So agriculture is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. So depending on your measurement, it's between 24% and 36% of all the greenhouse gases come from agriculture. Now, unlike cars or airplanes, agriculture can both emit greenhouse gases, but can also draw them down. So it can actually pull the greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. So we absolutely need to grow more food with less pollution, but also figure out ways in which we can use the farms to pull that greenhouse gases into the ground and keep them there. Great.
One of the things that we're working on in the Department of State is efficiency when it comes to agriculture. David mentioned how agriculture is both a source of, but also a sequester of carbon dioxide. And efficient farming techniques reduce the amount of carbon dioxide that is released and can help sequester more carbon dioxide. So David is the expert on this. He share a lot more, but efficient farming techniques are really important. And this is where also digital technologies can help farmers be more efficient. Like if you are doing open field agriculture versus aquaponics or even vertical farming, there are different levels of efficiency there. And I will explore them over the course of the season.
Well, I was going to say, Niles, that's the perfect segue, because the theme of this whole season is efficiency, right? How do you grow more with less? That is our overarching question. And less can be interpreted and can mean many different things, but we're going to be diving into that all season. So I think, Eric, unless there's anything else you want to explore or give us little hints about in your Minecraft world right now, I think it would be great for us to move on and start talking about the upcoming challenge.
Oh, absolutely. There is one thing I would love to share before we jump out of the world. And so I've been using quite a little bit of code here to run our farm, right? And you see me typing in commands such as plant or harvest. But if that is something you've never done and you're getting your free, I love to use the word free, license from NASEF to use Minecraft Education. Minecraft Education has Code Builder built right into it. And so I want to point students in the right direction, because one of, not the only, but one of the ways you can tackle this week's or this first challenge for 2024 is through code, to create automated processes on your farm through code. If you have never coded before, don't you worry. It's actually not as hard or scary as it sounds. So I want to show you kind of where to get started. It'll take 2 seconds. So if I press C on my keyboard, if you're on a touch screen like a tablet, there's a little picture of this guy right here. And that is how you access what's known as the Code Builder in the Minecraft education world. By the way, Team Kane, while I'm doing this, have you used Code Builder in Minecraft before in your projects?
I have, but not for this type of, not for farming.
Gotcha. Okay, so good. This is a perfect example of where you could learn some of how to do the farming in here. So I see Brian has brought his agent along for the ride as well. We could have multiple robots working in here. So I'm going to press C. Actually, let me back out of here, switch back to blocks. There we go. And I'm going to back all the way out as if it was my first time opening Code Builder. So here we go. So the first time you do that, you press C or you hit that little agent icon, you're going to see this, and it's going to ask you to choose your editor. If you're starting off for the first time, the one I will recommend is the one right at the top that is Microsoft Make Code. 1, it is free. 2, you can do it in multiple languages, whether that's Block, Java, Python, etc. But what I'd recommend also to do Make Code is there are tutorials, and you'll see there's all these tutorials that you can choose from. And if we scroll down to the third column row rather, I should say, of tutorials, you'll see 2 that'll probably come in handy if you're learning to do this. One is Agent Farm, which literally shows you how to till with your agent, how to plant with your agent, how to harvest with your agent, and then maybe even Agent Fence, right? We've got this fence around our world, but what if we could automate the agent doing some of the repair work needed around our farm as well? If you need to start simpler, there are some really easy tutorials right at the top. But these 2 right here, these are going to come in handy. And if I click on, let's say, Agent Farm, I can choose what coding language I want to do it in. If I choose blocks, right, it's going to show me how it's going to get my agent doing some of that tilling and some of that planting for me, even in some just blocks of grass world. And you'll notice it's taking me step by step right here on this left side. You can see here are steps, right? I can even go back one if I wanted to. Through the tutorial of what to do. And the thing I always tell students is, if you're really not sure, there's this little light bulb down here, and that will kind of give you a hint as to what your code should look like or what it should be doing. So these tutorials are great to get you started if you want to automate some of those farming processes on the farm that you're going to create for Challenge 1. And so with that in mind, let's jump over to Challenge 1. So if you go to the Farmcraft, the NASEF Farmcraft world right now, or website right now, nasef.org/Farmcraft, You will see the things that have always been there. By the way, Claire, is it too late to register?
It is not too late to register, and you can register and join for the fantastic price of free, which includes everything that Eric is going through and showing you now. Educators, have no fear. We have the team guide, we have the challenge guides, everything will be included. So yes, definitely join us.
Yeah, and you'll find that first thing, how to register, and the team guide to get you all prepared for everything. The dates, and including ones for like this stream right here, are all in there. But you will see that preseason challenge 1 is now posted, and there is a link to both an educator guide and a submission portal, which is the flip page that you'll see over here. This challenge is due Monday, February 19th, 2024. But let's go through these 2 links, and I've already got them open. So the first one is the educator guide, and where the educator guide comes in handy, by the way, both for educators and for students. So if you're doing this and your students are the ones kind of leading the way and taking charge in all of this, and you got a team captain that wants to make sure, there's nothing wrong with sharing. There's no secrets in the educator guide that you couldn't share, that you're like, no, the answer key is right there. That's not there. So the first thing you'll come across, of course, is as we get down here is, where to find the recordings and things like that for the challenges and the tasks as we do them right there on the NASEF website or on the NASEF YouTube channel. But of course, presenting the challenge to the students, in this case, if you're the student reading that challenge, and it is all about autonomous farming. So adding that autonomous component to our existing farm in any ways that we can imagine, even using some of the autonomous practices that David mentioned, which sound amazing. And I would be pondering how to do that in a Minecraft world. But the good news is there are multiple ways you can complete this task. So once again, you are tasked with creating your own farm. That has always been our first challenge every season. But this time we want to see, how would you incorporate an autonomous practices into that? So, what are sensors doing or robotics doing or anything like that in your world? How are the tractors and the machinery driving themselves? How are we using AI and automation to drive some of these practices? I don't want to read out the challenge here word for word. All of this is there on the website. But let's say you are a relatively new Minecraft player, and maybe some of you have done some code, as we heard from the students here at Hannibal Esports and on Team Kane, and some of you maybe have not done as much code, or maybe have not coded the agent to do some of the farming. So if that's the case, there are several ways you can tackle this first challenge. Just like in the past, you can use prototyping. Simply build what you think those things would look like, or how they might work. And then when you submit your video, describe to us what those interactions would be. So maybe you build a tractor for your world, or an automated vehicle for your world, or a drone for your world, and you simply tell us what it's doing. Tell us, based on your research of modern autonomous practices and technologies that are taking place on farms, what those things in your game world are doing. So they don't have to be fully functional. They can be prototyped. You can just build them out and then explain to us what they are intended to do. The second way, and many of you have probably seen some ways of doing this, is do it with redstone. We can create some autonomous harvesters and things like that with redstone, using pistons and redstone and buttons and all sorts of things. I've seen several ways, and we actually include some videos and some ways that we've seen it done before, that you could follow some tutorials. But do it with redstone. See if you can create an autonomous, kind of farmer in the world using redstone. And then, of course, just like I did on the stream today, you could do it in code. And again, I did link to that agent farm and agent fence tutorials that can be found in the MakeCode homepage. There is a YouTube video. It's a little older, so some of the code has been updated since then, but it's a good place to start. But there are ways, just like what we showed on here today. And you want to focus on these questions as you are creating your world to submit for this first challenge, and your video for this first challenge. And that is, what autonomous tools and practices do farmers use today? Because many do. Some of them are already out there. What autonomous tools do you think would advance farming practices in the future? And David had some really phenomenal insight for that, as well as what they're already doing today. This one is perfect for the question that Team Kane asked, which is, what are the biggest current challenges that farmers face when dealing with new technologies? And then, of course, what is the most surprising thing you learned about autonomous farming when preparing for this challenge? With that in mind, you will go through, just like we did in previous seasons, a KWL chart. Before you even start the challenge, ask yourself what you already know about this. I mean, Team Kane has been participating. They're pretty knowledgeable. What you want to learn. Maybe you want to learn how to code that agent to do some farming for you. Maybe that's a want to learn, and you got to do some research on that. And then, of course, what you learned. We do have some links down below that talk about what those autonomous practices look like today and what's on the horizon, what's in the future. So check out some of those videos, those articles, those resources. Those links are here. And do some of your own research. Get online, use your search engines. Find some valid, reliable sources and see what's happening in the world today in terms of autonomous technologies and farming. And then, of course, you're going to build your project. You're going to build out that world. You're going to include that those autonomous decisions depending on what you're comfortable with in that world. Answer those questions, and then it's time to submit. Now, you'll find the flip link right here in the document, but you're also going to find it right here at the submit button right here. And if you do that, it's going to take you right to that challenge one. You'll see it says, do refer to the guide for the full challenge details, but you'll see again some of those questions to answer right there. And then, of course, you're going to record your screen. Now, there are a couple ways to do this. You can pre-record your video, and then you can simply upload it to Flip. You can also use the built-in tools that are in Flip to record your screen and submit it to Flip. And we're going to have a video on the NASEF page on how to do each of those things pretty quickly. It's a little hard for me to do on the stream. As you can see, you don't see my face right now because my camera is being used in like a million different ways. But we'll have that ready for you. So if you're not sure how to submit to Flip or to use the screen capture tools that are built right in, you can use those. And by the way, you may have other screen capture tools already built into your computer. The one that people never know, and I always tell them, is that you can actually use PowerPoint as a screen record and screen capture tool. And then export it as a video and upload it. And, you can do a lot of fun things in PowerPoint and add some cool animations or overlays or information and everything. So it's one of the options.
I'm looking surprised, and Hannibal Esports is nodding. So
They
just
probably
reinforcing
totally
David's
that,
point
right?
earlier about how the youth can educate the elderly in a society. All right.
And there we go. And again, I always go back to it, and I'm going to go back to it, Claire. So one, yes, registration is still open. It will stay open until the end of this event. The team guide is always there to help out those educators or the teams with where to find resources, what the procedures are, what each of the challenges are kind of focused on, not giving away everything about the challenge, but what the focus of those challenges are, when they're going to happen. When the world file is going to be released, because I know that's always like the exciting question. Not yet, but soon. And then Claire, I know this is your favorite talking point right here, so I'm going to bring it back to you.
Prizes. We always love to talk about prizes. I get the fun stuff. I get to remind everybody that this is indeed free to join. And also, please do not forget, if you do not have Minecraft Education Edition, we will provide that as well. Just be sure when the adult facilitator is going through and registering that they put in the number of licenses needed in that registration process. We don't collect student data. We don't want to know everyone's names. That is up to the educators to keep track of that. But we do need to know how many people if we're going to assign those out. And if you are a winning team, we have, first off, we do a random draw. And this is just for anybody who enters and completes all the challenges. Now, I'm going to remind you, these preseason challenges are designed to help you kind of get your feet wet in Minecraft and practice and especially develop some new coding skills this year. I'm really excited about the thought of that. But when we get to the regular season, every one of those regular season challenges is mandatory. And so you've got to be sure in the regular season, you stay on top of it and you get those submitted. And then as you do that, Eric's got the prizes pulled up for you right here. We'll do a random draw for 2 winners per region who complete the criteria. And we'll award a $50 Amazon gift card to those 2 random draw winners. And then for placement, third place in all 3 categories, senior, junior, and all ages. Third place will win a $200 Amazon gift card. Second place will win a $250 Amazon gift card. And first place winners will get a $500 Amazon gift card. That is some awesome prizing for the students for sure. And I'll just also throw in there, I know that there are we have people compete from all around the world. If by chance Amazon is not a vendor of choice where you live, we'll make sure you get something that you are able to use in your region. But David, this is one of the things that excited me when you talked about how many places you're working with the UN and you're working on agriculture and impacting food security for people around the world. And that's exactly what Farmcraft does. We've had students join us from more than 70 countries. And so just to be able to continue to be in lockstep where you're moving forward with the technology, and then we are right behind you with these smart students, as we've seen today on this stream, who are now thinking about agriculture and thinking about the environment and wanting to do their part to make sure that we all have enough food to eat, because that is a very big deal, as Niall said right when we started off. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Team Kane, I know that you got a little break from your school day today, so thank you to your teachers for letting you join us and share your questions. And David, thank you so much also for your time and all the wisdom that you had to share with us. Do you have any last suggestions or thoughts for students who are interested in or thinking about agriculture, what they should continue to do?
Keep going. The challenge facing us of growing food is a challenge for your generation, and your generation is the best suited to this because you are so immersed in technology and cloud native. So you whether you're in the real world or online, there's no distinction for you. And being able to work as a partner with AI to solve what is humanity's greatest challenge is exactly the kind of thing that your generation is up to task to do. So go forward and do good work.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Of course, if you're watching the stream, if you have any questions about the challenge or about the program, please email us info@nasef.org, and be sure to tune back in. We'll be looking for hopefully a few early submissions. If we get a few videos by February 16th, you'll have a chance to be featured on our next live stream. So get to work. And on February 22nd, we will be launching the next preseason challenge. So we can't wait to see your first steps into coding in Minecraft. This will be awesome. Thanks all for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Good luck, everybody.
Oh.